Hi everyone, I'm Nnamdi Adipo. Welcome to Insight. So a couple of weeks back, the executive chairman of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, Mohammed Nami, was elected as the 15th president of the Commonwealth Association of Tax Administrators, CATA, a group more popularly, of course, known as CATA, like I just said, for a 3-year tenure. On this episode, I would attempt to get some clarifications on the importance of Nigeria clinching a leading role in that association, and of course use the opportunity to raise other issues on the national tax policy. I'd also delve into the issue of entrepreneurship for development, and that promises to be an enlightening session. Elizabeth Omori is still away, but she will be back presently, and we're sure to have her here next week. For now, let's get started. So why do we do taxes? Taxation is clearly one of the practical means of raising revenue to finance government spending on the goods and services that most of us demand. And while tax policies may vary from country to country, most regional and continental blocs have a coalition or, I would say, tax administration body that provides synergy and some sense of commonality on how to adjust a tax regime within a system for best results. Nigeria, of course, belongs to the Commonwealth Association of Tax Administrators. It's more popularly called CATA. And we just recently clinched a leadership role in that association. By the way, CATA was established in 1978 by a decision of the Commonwealth Finance Ministers. The organization helps member countries through conferences, training programs, publications, and knowledge sharing to develop effective tax administration that promotes sustainable development and good governance. I think that's enough for context and background, so let me introduce my guest proper now. His name is Michael Olufemi Olarinde, Technical Assistant on Tax Policy to the Executive Chairman, Federal Inland Revenue Service. Incidentally, he is also Nigeria's country correspondent to CATA. Welcome to Insight.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
So the Commonwealth Association of Tax Administrators is not a monetary unification in the core sense of it. And so I'm not sure that issues of commodity and capital tax coordination are fundamental subjects that you people discuss during conferences and trainings. I would, however, like to know how CATA factors in the harmonization of, how would I describe it now, distortionary effects of existing differences in national tax systems within Commonwealth member nations, all 47 countries at that.
So, if I may say something, thank you once more for having me. CATA, being an organization, of course, like you said, taxation varies from country to country. And taxation is actually about studying the features and characteristics of business activity within a location and trying to government taxing search with respect to the tax policies and tax legislation that are bound in such country. So, however, taxation is something that is, there's a uniform tax policy which every country tries to adopt. And so what are we looking at in CATA? We're looking at collaboration in tax administration. So irrespective of the differences in our different jurisdictions, the principle of taxation is one. And of course, every jurisdiction needs to conform with that basic principle of taxation. So, and world over, there's a move to convergence of principles, convergence of how you perform your functions with respect to tax administration. So we could say best practice. What is best practice? Though there's no definition for best practice, but we know what practice is good. And that is why the association needs to come together and study the peculiarities of each jurisdiction, and in order to have a common and uniform model of taxation within the member countries.
Uniform, you say. You've mentioned convergence, and that's quite striking. What's the benchmark if we're, like we've established already that regimes might vary from country to country, but there is a benchmark, you would say. What is it? What is our benchmark, especially for countries within CATA?
So when you talk about benchmark, of course, like we said, administration may vary from country to country,
Yes.
depending on the business environment or tax environment,
Yes.
and which is about the legislation that allows for taxation in such country. So now, you know, in taxation we have what we call the tripods of taxation,
Okay.
which you start from the tax policy, then you move to the tax legislation, and you go to the tax administration. Now, we know what is a good tax policy. So once you have your tax policy right, now you use that to develop your tax legislation before you now run your tax administration. Now, countries need to comes together to now look at what is best as tax policy in every country. And of course, what is good in Nigeria is good in the UK, is good in the Bahamas, and is good everywhere. So you look at what we actually engender resource revenue mobilization within, and looking at the context. Of course, you are allowed to now adopt whatever decision has been taken to the peculiarity of your jurisdiction. So, like I said, convergence is you converge and you also present the peculiarity within your own jurisdiction. And because everybody at the table are experts, they'll be able to tailor whatever suits you. Having an omnibus decision that can actually cover everybody. That is just what the convergence seeks to achieve.
Forgive my naivety, but I don't know, you've mentioned something else that, I mean, that just stood out there. Good tax policy. What is a good tax policy?
Okay. So a good tax policy is the one that considers, number one, it considers getting revenue for government to fund public infrastructure, to fund the business of government.
Okay.
And also, a good tax policy must follow the principles of taxation, which means it should be simple, it should be fair, it should be equitable, it provides for equitable, that you ensure that people who earn more, pay more, and also that there's no disparity in the application of taxes. So that is what a good tax policy seeks to achieve.
We'll come back to this whole issue of good tax policy, and we'll pick certain elements of that you've mentioned here in the course of our conversation. But let me just return back to the issue of Qatar. I mean, at the level of Qatar, can you confirm that tax competition exists among member countries in a manner that promotes and engender pro-growth tax policies in member states? While you're answering that, please speak to the import of Nigeria's current leadership of the association and the correlation between that and the issue of tax competition.
Okay, when you say tax competition, I'm sure you're trying to look at if a country tries to offer lower taxes in order to...
Especially within Qatar now, and how that balance is out.
In order to encourage persons to shift their profit to one jurisdiction and the other. Okay, well, that is even one of the reasons why countries need to come together, so that you both look at your peculiarities, look at how to have the one that ensures that countries don't do that. And in world over right now, you know, you look at how you do your taxes, how you don't shortchange even your citizens, people who do your business in your jurisdiction. And if I may throw some light into Nigerian tax system.
Please.
Nigerian tax is what we call worldwide income. So irrespective of where you earn your income, you still have to pay your taxes in Nigeria if you are a Nigerian resident. So what it means is that even when you go to those countries and you do business there, once you come back home, you're still subject to taxation. So that's one. And when we come together as Qatar or as countries, we encourage to have what we call maybe a double taxation treaty, or you have a form of treaty that allows credit of tax from one jurisdiction to the other, which means no country is still being shortchanged. So once you come together, those are the progressive discussion you have. And now going to Qatar,
yes.
What it's a Nigerian presidency,
yes, for our current leadership, yes.
Nigeria right now. Right now, you, given your background to the issue of Qatar, you already said it's an association that ensures that countries tap from the knowledge of one another also collaborate for effective tax administration and also in innovation in tax administration. Right now, for Nigeria, you know, let me just narrow it to the issue of the business environment right now. You know that we are moving from the era of brick and mortar in business activity and transactions and now going to the electronic base.
Digital.
And what do you need? You need data, you need information to ensure, to be able to capture transactions, businesses. And what, in doing that, you need exchange of information, you need information sharing, you need data, you need even sharing of innovative ideas among members. And it is one of the mandate, essence of Qatar, is actually to ensure collaboration among members and to ensure that they benefit from even knowledge of the advanced one. And there is a bias, or I would say there is a particular concentration on actually on the developing countries, trying to ensure that developing countries actually comes at par with the developed world. And it is one of the critical mandates of Qatar, and which has been done. So now, also you look at when you come to personnel training, capacity building for, of course, you cannot say that the capacity in the UK is same in Nigeria. So when you have a UK in the room, in an association with Nigeria, it is definite that you're going to get some capacity upgraded, especially capacity of personnel. And over the years, I would say Nigeria have enjoyed some of the trainings at Qatar. When you talk about IFF, in illicit financial flows, it's an issue that has been a problem. And when you talk about it, it's not only when there's a fraud. Sometimes we have what we call the aggressive tax avoidance. And aggressive tax avoidance occur because maybe a particular a company or a firm have a cheaper way of doing business in another place, so it moves the profits from one jurisdiction to another. So if this is done, there is always the collaboration among members can help to ensure that the right jurisdiction gets what is fair, due and fair to them.
That's quite interesting. So I get the elaborate picture and synergy you've just painted here on Qatar's role and just how important it is for a country like Nigeria to be part, not just part of this body, but to actually lead this body. I understand for a 3-year tenure.
Yeah, it is for a 3-year tenure. Yeah.
Okay, great, fantastic. I did say we would revisit the issue of some of the elements you mentioned while you were answering my question on what a good tax policy is. So I get the explanation that at a fundamental level, a tax system exists to allocate the cost of government in some fair way. But I would like for you to explain taxation from the angle of encouraging or discouraging certain types of behavior, or as a tool to correct market imperfections and to modify the distribution of income or wealth. Can you cite specific examples of how the Nigerian tax policy applies to each of the elements that I have mentioned? Perhaps begin with the one on modifying the distribution of income as well as taxation between the rich and the poor.
Okay, I'll strictly let me start from the basics. When you talk about, you're talking about trying to modify between the rich and the poor. Let me take, for example, what we call the personal income tax. Personal income tax is a tax which individuals pay on their income. So when an individual earns income, he pays tax. And in Nigeria presently, the personal income tax is paid to the states where the such person is resident. Now, how do you now use that to ensure that the one who earns more pay more? So we have what we call the table of tax rates. The table of tax rate now has a bracket. So your income bracket is dependent on your tax rate is dependent on your income bracket. So it is not one size fits all. So there's a percentage that you start from 7%. If your income is about 500, and then you move on to so the last band is even higher. It's about 24%. So the income you earn determines how much you pay. So what it means is that government is collecting more from those that earn more and using it to fund for those that earn less. So, you know, when government collects that money across board, you channel the same money to the provision of infrastructure. And this infrastructure will be used by everybody across the board. So I believe that's a way for redistributing income. Also, let me go to consumption tax, VAT. It's a known tax on consumption. So if you earn a minimum wage and you cannot afford, what you can just afford is to a cup of rice. Or let me say, because that's a basic food product, let me say you can afford a rubber shoe. That's a shoe made of rubber. So the price of such will be low. The price of such is low, and you pay the VAT under 5% of that particular amount. But if you earn, let me say you earn 500,000 naira and you can afford to buy a Gucci shoe,
that was imported into the country.
That was imported into the country.
So you pay more VAT.
You pay more VAT.
So this applies typically when we talk about attempting to correct certain behavior.
Yes.
It aligns properly. Would you say we are fully exploiting personal income tax, and not just personal income tax, personal property tax as well, because they would seem to align in a manner that achieves satisfactory progressivity, meaning that a situation where the rich pay proportionately more taxes on the many properties that they own, and just as much as they earn. You know, use Abuja as a case in point for me, and use the issue of personal property to begin with.
Okay. Now, when you talk about you disagreeing with whether...
Yes, because why I tend to disagree, sorry for butting in again,
no problem.
Is because we have a massive informal sector in Nigeria, and part of the challenge that we do have is the lack of data. And to aggregate first off, to even aggregate what you amass as income tax from the generality of the population, you need to have a database that suggests or puts a figure to the number or how you're taxing. And this is a group, the informal sector is a group that is not, we do not have, do we have a database for the informal group in Nigeria?
Well,
so how do we tax a group that we do not have data on? I mean, please just help me clarify that. And of course, we'll come back to the issue and the question that I asked you about personal property tax as well. So
if I may start, maybe I should start from personal income tax. Now, when you say, what I just said is that you are a low-level income earner. Let me even say today, if you are earning minimum wage, now government have said no tax. So don't pay tax if you are earning just the minimum wage.
That's 30,000 naira.
Yes, 30,000 naira or 360,000 naira in a year annually. So what I'm saying is that even at that, you don't pay. There's some people who earn more, pays, and you still enjoy the same infrastructure. So it is a means of bridging the gap. But let me go to your question. Now, you asked another question which is actually not, like you say, it is not the same. You say, how are we exploring enough?
Yes.
Are we tapping into the personal income tax to ensure that we bridge the gap?
Personal property tax as well.
When you talk about exploring, now there's room for more, actually.
Okay.
So when you go to personal income tax, it is administered by the states. So we have to also go back to capacity. So do the state have enough, how many states have enough capacity to actually go all the way to ensure that they tax well? And you talk about data. You know, we operate what we call self-assessment in Nigeria. So what the law says is that at the end of the year, if you earn income, compute your taxable income and compute your tax and remit to government. Aside from that, we have what we call the pay as you earn under the personal income tax, which means the employer. The employer needs to charge a certain amount from the salary of his employee and remit. So those are so when you now talk about have we explored enough, I would say no, we have not. Because even you can use taxation as a tool to actually bridge gap. Now, I will go to what we call benefit in kind.
Okay.
Which means that even when you earn a lot, you drive, maybe your organization still fund your official fund, give you a vehicle, house, and all those things. What the law says is that such benefits should be quantified in terms of money and added to your and forms your income, and all should be taxed. Many states actually even explore this. This one will bring more income to them. So let's go back to the informal sector, like you asked about. Yeah, data is key.
Yes. So
you go to some states, they've tried to do what we call the Presumptive Tax Regime, which means they go to the informal sector, have a parameter, sit down with the association and business groups to decide what constitutes income of such business group and come up with a tax system, a taxable income and a tax rate that we actually show like a fairness to such group. So some states have done that and they are taxing the informal sector very well.
You know, you've all, you've answered my question about I'm somewhat convinced about the personal income tax. Well, you've left out the personal property tax. Yes, please, can you quickly speak to that?
So let me talk about property tax.
And why we're yet to fully explore.
Now, when you talk about property tax, we have different level of property tax. So we have what we call at the local government level, what we call the tenement rate. Yes. Which means you need to pay a certain amount. So that is administered at the local government level. I'm aware that many states are charging this. However, FCT have had some issues with this over the time because of the nature. We have we have the FCT Internal Revenue Service, and we have the local government revenue authorities, which are because of the cosmopolitan nature of FCT, I think they've had some issues in the past. I can't remember what the situation is now. But we also have what we call the capital gains tax. Capital gains tax is simply when such properties are being transferred from one person to the other, the income, the proceeds of such is taxable under the law. Okay. So if you actually acquire a property for 1 million naira and 5 years down the line, you're selling it for 5 million naira. Okay. What the law says is that the difference from the acquisition price and the disposal price should be chargeable to what we call capital gain tax. You charge 10% of it. And I will also agree with you that to what extent does the tax authority even aware of these transfers? And that is where synergy among government agencies need to come in. Most of the time, these transfers are done and the land registries are aware of this. So they need to flag this to tax authorities to ensure that such taxes are captured and collected.
Unfortunately, we are out of time, but just before you go, I'd like for you to just talk about something real quick, if it's possible. I see what Lagos is doing with regards to tax administration, particularly in the area of electronic payments on multiple platforms, as a matter of fact. And of course, I know there are other states across the country equally doing just as well. How are we handling the issue or challenges of multiplicity of taxes? And by the way, I mean, more importantly, where are we with the issue of non-payment of tax refunds? Is that still a taxpayer's right, or it's a mere privilege? Seeing that the practicability of some of these rebates or refunds are curtailed in most cases where they apply.
Okay, I will disagree with you that we don't pay tax refund.
No, I'm not saying, I'm just asking, where are we with it?
Okay, we do pay tax refund. Over time, when a taxpayer is entitled to a tax refund, we have been paying. What may actually be heard of, probably maybe there is a delay, that's before now. However, in the last year, 2020 Finance Act, there was a modification when FRA was given the power to automate, so that we address some of the issues we're having with digital transactions.
Is there a tax refund on VAT?
Yeah, there's tax refund on any form of taxes.
But
so
it's
far
not very popular, yeah. Well, sometimes I've had the opportunity to travel, sometimes, and I did a couple of shopping, not even within the airport area.
Okay.
And when I got to the airport, a couple of times, I've had to take my receipts to a tax office within the airport, and then I get a rebate or I get a refund. Some percentages of the VAT that I paid on goods and services.
Now, you know what you have just said. I'm sure you're speaking about the UK.
Not just the UK, as a matter of fact.
Some other countries.
Yes.
I know it's very... So what we do in Nigeria is that when you are not supposed to pay tax, if such income is exempted, you don't pay tax initially. Or if you are a class of persons that have zero rated income, if it can be tracked even from the beginning, your invoice is zero rated. Okay. However, if you don't have such information provided, of course you can't get. But let me go back to tax refund. Okay. Tax refund also comes when you have paid tax that you're not supposed to pay. Or when you pay excess of taxes, you pay tax in excess of what you're supposed to pay. The law says you should just apply. But what we have had is that it has to be budgeted, and when it's budgeted, that's when we have issues. But because we had just one budget, however, in the last Finance Act, it has been expanded to ensure that every tax head have its own budget so that there will be enough money to take care of refunds from different tax types. And so I'm sure we're handling the issue of tax refund very well at the federal level.
I'd like
so
to
I
see
can't
where,
speak for the state.
Yeah, well, I'd like to see where that goes. I think the conversation will take up some other time when you're on the program. Unfortunately, we've overshot our time. And so, I mean, hopefully I'll be able to bring you back here some other time. Okay. Michael Olufemi Olarinde, Technical Assistant Tax Policy to the Executive Chairman, Federal Inland Revenue Service, and Nigeria's country correspondent to Qatar. Thank you so much for coming on the program. Thank you for having
me. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So these days, I hear people describe themselves as entrepreneurs, and I'm truly happy for them, especially when they are young persons and bustling with energy. Entrepreneurs take action and they create value in the process by bringing to the table new products and services. They stimulate new employment, which ultimately results in the acceleration of economic development. And so to gain more insights on this issue, entrepreneurial consultant and advocate Christian Ashayaku joins me to discuss the issue of entrepreneurship for development. Did I get that right? How do you pronounce your last name, sorry?
My name is Christian Ashayaku. You're quite right.
Ashayaku. I got
understand,
it right.
Yeah.
Yes,
you got it.
Welcome to Insight, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you so
very
much.
well. So in some climes, especially in the West, entrepreneurs are thought of as national assets to be cultivated, motivated, and most times remunerated to the possible, greatest possible extent. Would you say then, or perhaps, let me say, would you agree that entrepreneurship is important to the extent that it could very well determine the prospect and future of a country? I mean, even on the world stage, of course, riding on research and innovation, as well as the propensity to stimulate wealth.
Well, you said it all. You said it all. Entrepreneur is the key. I mean, it's what I call is the hub of any economy. You understand? What is skill? You have a skill, your ability to transfer your skill into creating wealth. You can have any kind of skills, but until you are able to convert it into wealth, it becomes that's what we call entrepreneur. Converting skill into wealth. Whatever thing you learn, you make a good thing out of it. And that is the hub of every economy. It's what makes a home to grow, makes a society to survive. So it is very important, especially in a society like us, like Nigeria, where everybody have a beautiful idea. I think, and we actually been practicing it from day one. It's just sometimes we tend to move out. I think every Nigerian, to be fair, is an entrepreneur. That you see that in the Igbo apprenticeship system. Okay. They convert, which is, to be honest, we should be proud of the Igbo apprentice system, because if you go to the Alaba market, they teach you, you learn a skill, and after some time, they set you up. It's like an incubator. They said it's the highest incubator of successful small businesses worldwide. And I think Nigerians should be proud of that. And if we build on that, I think that will be one of the ways to grow our wealth as a country.
Let me just backtrack a bit and take our conversation back to the core foundation for any business which is having an idea in the first instant. So we know that an idea is the first milestone in the process of building a successful business and sustaining an enterprise. I mean, it is a function, or can be a function, of how the entrepreneur dabbles with innovative ideas. Let me pick on your experience as an avowed entrepreneurship advocate, hoping to rebrand the minds of our young, of our youth, basically, here in the country, towards economic dependency through entrepreneurship. How often are you inundated with creative ideas from prospective entrepreneurs, and are there markets for every promising idea out there, even if the idea is somewhat esoteric in nature, or maybe informal and very mundane?
Yeah, you see, an idea is, I would say an idea is only relevant when it solves a problem. Everything we do, I say...
That's kind of deep. You know, it just struck me.
Yeah, when I'm from the filmmaking background, and sometimes they come to me and they say, I want to make this movie, and I'm just saying to myself, do people want to watch your movie? Do they want to hear the story? That is, so you can have a great idea, but your ability to transfer your idea to solving a particular problem is what that makes it work. So an idea must be able to solve a problem. And when that is understood, I think perhaps the only limitation is, how do you convert the idea into wealth? And that is tutor. You know, to be able to have an idea is energy, you feel it. But being able to convert it, you need a little bit of understanding of how entrepreneurship works. How do I make wealth out of what I have? For instance, if I can sing, how do I turn my singing into money? And that's what the Nigerian youth have done well. If I'm a good actor.
Very well, I dare say.
Yeah. If I'm a good actor, how do I convert it into money? Sometimes they don't know how to sell themselves. You understand? So it is all that. Anything you do, if I can make biscuit, how do I make a biscuit and sell it? So these are different things. So having a great idea is one thing.
Okay.
Using it to solve a problem is another thing. Then being able to convert it into what is the third step for me.
So what do you basically look out for when you're coming up with an idea? Do I deliberately look out for areas where I think there are lacunas and my idea could just provide value in that space?
Yeah, I would say, I always say, if you do what you do best.
Use the film making industry for instance.
Let me come this way. If you do, the passion is very important.
Great.
If you do what you do best, you never work again. It's the saying. So I would say
that's another deep one.
Yeah. I would say try and follow what you really love to do.
Okay.
Look at it deep. Yeah. Look at your passion. So whatever happens, you are there because it's your passion. You're not working. You're not suffering. It's not like you're going to slave. So you are enjoying what you do. And then as you think, okay, you say to myself, how many people want what I'm doing now? It's number 2. Understand?
Aha.
Okay, this idea, this lovely thing I can do. For instance, okay, and we come to film work.
Okay.
Sometimes you only see people in front of the camera. I like to work with people. I work mostly with people behind the camera as well. So you could be a cameraman. You know, learn how to use the camera. Maybe your passion is to take pictures. You're a photographer. You begin to take pictures. All right. Now, how do I make my photography? The truth is people need pictures, but which kind of people, what kind of photography do you want to look at? Is it the modeling, or you are the one that like the journalistic, journalists, they love photography. You want to tell story with it. So all those are kind of photography you want to take. That's 2. Now, your ability to convert it into proper, make it so beautiful that people want to consume it is a third part of it.
That's creating a unique that's what we'll call unique selling proposition.
Thank you. That's correct.
But please go ahead. I'm having I'm having fun listening to you.
Yeah. So what I would say is this. So I have an idea, beautiful. I'm a photographer. I like to take pictures. That's one part of it, you know. That I have the passion, so I'm not suffering. Anywhere I go, I take pictures. I like to do it with my phone these days. And all of you have a phone, yeah? Then from there, you say, okay, I need to create a niche. Should I be taking photographs of models? If that's what I want to specialize in, then you need to be specific so that you begin to learn. Because it takes time. My friend would call it school money. You need to spend time, learn, make a mistake, stay there. And the more mistake you make, you're learning. Because the mistake is something, if you make a mistake, then you've learned. You won't make it again. You grow on it. And with time, you become an expert. And in fact, as a matter of fact, I'm calling some of our young producers in Nigeria, I'm calling them experts, because they've come up with something unique. They come up with some beautiful sound, and which is selling around the world. Who is an expert? They are expert in what they do. And so if you continue to do what you do, you become an expert. And don't forget, it has to be solving a problem in the society to a particular set of people. It has
to be targeted at solving
exactly.
a problem. You know, you said something about mistakes, and it just reminded me of what a friend of mine, a very close friend would always say. He would say there's no such thing as mistakes. Yes. They are lessons in retrospect.
Thank you.
You use them as stepping stone and as guide for whatever step you take in the future. Sure. So I've had the opportunity to speak about the growth of business incubation centers for startups, noticeably in Abuja, Lagos, and Port Harcourt. These are areas that are known to be quite a few of them. But we know that venturing for capital is still a major issue. So in the event of the absence of investors or venture capitalists, what other options can an intending entrepreneur use to get capital for a business? And what could determine the success of attracting investment or funds to one's business, whether it's a one-man business or it's a two-man business, you know, that you intend to start basically?
I mean, this is sometimes I'm going to break a lot of people's heart here. And I always say to people, if you have a beautiful idea and you want money, let's use the simplest language, to make it work, you want an investor. One, being able to propose it in the right way is important. That's where the tutor is. For instance, why will you come to me and say, give me money to do business? Show me how putting my money into your business is going to bring me money. And the money will be yours. Because everybody wants to make more money. So if you can come up with an idea and you're able to sell it to me, that if I put 1 million, I'm going to get 1.2 million in 3 months, and I can see it, then that is it. So that is why it is important for everybody that want to, in the UK, we call it the business plan. A little bit of cash flow focus. All those ones, that tutoring, that is what the incubator center will definitely, that's what they provide today in Nigeria,
yes,
which is very important. You cannot come up, you may have a beautiful idea, but if you don't have a business plan, you must not know how to write it. It doesn't have to be all that. But at least have a plan. So, okay, from here to here, this is what I'm going to do, and this is what I need from here to here. So when you're telling somebody, oh, if you give me 1 million, I'm going to make so amount of money, and this is what I'm going to use, this is what I have already, the man will listen to you into your skill. He want to make more money. He's definitely going to invest. So that is the best way to get investment. Of course, the federal government is doing a lot. Throwing money around.
I was going to actually come to that and ask you to underscore the importance of the role being played currently by the federal government in its effort towards strengthening microeconomic structures and businesses. I mean, the government gives loans and grants directly to entrepreneurs and small businesses to help them grow their startups. These schemes are known to have helped keep some businesses afloat, as a matter of fact. There's NDE as well, and a host of others. Can you speak to the general impact of some of these efforts by the federal government?
Well, because of course I'm new, I may not know all the details, but you know
I get
truth.
That. But you have a fair idea of what's been happening.
For instance, in the UK, I'll be using where I'm coming from. In the UK, you get a lot of small schemes which is targeted at young people and even entrepreneurs of all ages. The most important thing is that is normally for the startup. And if you can't start well with 10,000, you can't start well with 20 million. It's always important to learn to start small. Sure. It's always good. If you can't do well with small, you can't do well with big.
Say 1 million naira will give me the opportunity to gain plenty of experience in terms of mistakes.
Exactly. Because if you have it all, if you make mistake, you're going to zero. But if you begin to...
But I can make the mistake 1 million times.
Exactly. And you're still there. You see? So that is very important. No, I think it's important to grow the skill, the tenacity, and the strength of... And I always say to people, I don't understand no. In theater psychology, that's what we're taught. If somebody say no to you, there's somebody going to say yes. You need to believe in your passion. Believe in... And actually display a skill. And when you show that this is really what you want to do, the door will open. Just keep knocking. The door will open. And that's all you need. It's only one door. And your things begin to happen.
You know, there was something you said earlier, a couple of minutes ago, about the business plan,
Yes.
selling the business idea.
Yes.
But you know, I see a challenge there too. Like you did say, I do not need to know how to write a business plan. I mean, there are examples and people whose business and special area of specialty that it is to write business plan for business ideas. But there's still how do I get that business plan?
On paper.
No, not on paper now. I already have it on paper. But how do I locate a prospective investor? I mean, the space between my business plan and the investor, there's a space.
Yes.
How do we bridge that space?
You see,
Yes.
for me, that has, in all my years of experience, that has been the easiest part.
Really?
Yes.
I would think it's the hardest.
No, it's the most difficult one is actually articulating your business plan.
Oh, okay.
Because everybody, quote me, everybody want to make more money. You see, all you need to do is, if you normally you have 2 minutes to talk.
Yes.
And you have a plan, beautiful plan. And somebody say, for instance, say, hey, if I tell you today that I know what it takes to fly, that from here now I will just leave here and I'm in my village in a second. Everybody will want to, what's that? That's a skill.
How is that going
you understand?
to happen?
So
Yeah.
how is that going to work? And if I can prove it, everybody want to invest in it. So it is important that I'm able to prove my point. And I can show that people, this is another thing they want to say. A businessman will say, okay, don't need to write anything. You've got the business plan, got this. Once all that is in place, this is my plan, and this is who wants what I'm doing, and this is how much I need to start it, and with this, I'm going to get this amount of money, then you are settled. When you present it to anybody, see, let's say we have family. In Nigeria, we go from a unique family system.
Yes.
You understand? The state government is providing so many now. The federal government is there. And there are other private investors. Maybe, I know sometimes we say the banks are asking a lot of interest, but they are looking for businesses too.
To invest
You
in.
understand? So at the point in time, you'll be able to tell a bank, hey, I'm not paying this amount of interest, but this one you are sure you're going to get this. If the bank can see the prospect in what you're doing, they will throw the money at you. So that is why I said it's the easiest part of it. The most difficult, the most difficult part of it is actually
Conceptualizing.
yes, conceptualizing it and putting it down, not necessarily on paper, but being able to present it, you know, and present it the wise way. Don't say, I need money out of emotion. Business people don't work with emotion.
You
they
know,
work with.
I have a couple of ideas. I mean, even as we speak, it's been, you know, maybe it was a fog before you and I started this conversation. It's becoming clearer. Before we go, you teach me how to do a business plan, and just maybe
Okay.
we'll take it up from there. But I have listened to you in the last couple of minutes, and you've been talking and speaking practically about the benefits of growing the informal sector and its capacity to generate massive employment for many here in Nigeria, especially young persons. Aside some of the issues that you have raised, I mean, you talked about what is being done in the UK. What else can be done to stimulate rapid growth of that informal sector? I mean, of course, you could talk about the ease of doing business, the production chain processes, market environments, and, you know, I would even think maybe the issue of tax exemption for certain classes of small businesses should be, I mean, a priority.
Let me go to 2 industries here, all right? In the UK, for instance, because I'm a filmmaker, if I make a movie, they give me a tax incentive of 25% of my budget. They call it tax credit. So if you make a British film, you get 25% of your expenditure, British spend.
Yes.
At the end of it, you just prove it. It's not debatable that will be credited into your account. The reason being they know it's a high-risk area, and they're using it to encourage you to spend the money, you know, and to help. But the good thing about it is the government are not stupid. You know, they do that so that if you invest, if you bring your money and you spend it there, they give you some more this money back so that you can do more. So it's called tax exemption, like you mentioned. That is a very good part of it. That is a way of encouraging small businesses. But you know, the one I'm really passionate about, the one I see more in my country, Nigeria, is the agricultural sector.
Oh, okay.
It is, I've been around and I making few phone calls. I found that some young people are now understanding the importance of agriculture. Some of them have a small farm in the front of their house. And I'm running a scheme at the moment, which I call the Agricultural Development Scheme. All I'm saying, all I need from you is a plot of land. I will cultivate the land with you, and we will share percentages. So all I'm saying to people is just give me your plot of land, and we will work on it.
You know, I mean, there's something we now know as agri-entrepreneurship.
Yes.
Okay, so it's basically the agri-business, but now, you know, focusing on certain areas in the value chain of specific crops and all of that. And I've read quite a bit about what they now call smart farming. Okay. And I see people, I mean, you don't have to even have a piece of land like you just mentioned. No. You could actually be in your house and you could have a farmhouse within the house in sacks, and you see people plant yam, and they harvest in sack, and they reap, they get really good harvest, and so the agri business is massive, and the area, I mean, keeps expanding with the advent of technology. I mean, would you like to talk a bit about these and inherent opportunities in the area?
In fact, if I go, I'm maybe going too far on it, because for me, it's a passionate area for me. I'm really, because it is unheard of that a country like us are suffering. Maybe we have an issue of food. Nigeria should be supplying food to the rest of the whole of the African continent.
Exactly.
Only the landscape of Niger State is enough. If we cultivate it, as a people, there will be massive employment for these young people. I don't know whether it is something the government and the private need to come together and do, but my direct infusion is, I'm saying to young people, please, what you need to do really is pick a plot of land and say, I'm going to invest 1 year. Rather than looking for that white-collar job, I'm going to spend 1 year, I'm going to cultivate this land. Funny enough, the federal government initiative gives you fertilizer sometimes for free. They give you everything you need for free. At
subsidized rates, actually. Even if you have to pay, they are highly subsidized.
So why can't you really get up from this whole, put up this suit. Go on, put on your glove. Keep your hands dirty. Grow your farm. When you finish at the end of the year, you end up buying a car. That car you think is misery, you buy it from your own hand. And I think when you work for something, like my father always say, that is when it stays with you forever.
Exactly. And
not the one that you just come and you just go. That's why I said before, if you can't start with 10, you can start with billion. I know you didn't. You didn't agree with that. You didn't agree with that.
Let me just quickly add to what you've just said about making your own money. I mean, the level of satisfaction you get, the sense of fulfillment you get from making your own money is different from that which you get when someone just hands over the money to you and all of that.
And you can't even keep it, because when you grow wealth by yourself, it continues to grow.
Very true.
But when it is thrown on you, it does away. You understand?
You feel entitled.
There's no way. Because you see, if you make 200 billion now and you have no way of sustaining it, it will go. But if you grow you're from 1 to 2, 3, you're always going to grow in life.
Exactly.
And that is the key. And that is something young people need to learn. They have the whole world ahead of them, the whole life ahead of them. And it is very important that you guys succeed, young people, because you are our future. If you guys fail, we fail. So it is very important. When I talk about young people, it's always a passionate thing for me. Because if the young people fail, means a few years down the line when I'm old, they'll be the one doing everything for us. So it's important for you guys to succeed. And one of the ways to succeed is actually to create your own world. You understand? Creating wealth does not really depend on anybody. It's about a decision. You look around you, look at what is needed. And for instance, I just mentioned farming. I know you guys will know, like, farming, why would this old man tell me to farm? But trust me, young man, if you take your time and put some little time in all the time you have to play, it's not all the time. You go to the farm, would you love to see something growing? You plant something and it's growing. Or even if it is a pig you have, something, you see it growing.
Yes.
With time, you make money out of it.
You know, earlier on you talked about, I picked up on something you said about tutoring.
Yes.
And I mean, so I'll just gradually steer our conversation to the issue of mentorship for entrepreneurs and just how important that is for especially nascent business owners. But tell me why that is so important and how mentorship, tutoring, like you said, could impact on an entrepreneur's development.
You see, that's what we Africans do best. In the past, I know with the new education system, we tend to neglect it. I'll go back to the Igbo apprentice system. You're sent to serve somebody for maybe 5 years. This is somebody that have wealth of experience, have made a lot of mistakes. And from every day you begin to learn the trade. He's mentoring you, he's helping you. And at the end of the day, you know what we do? We are Africans, we will set you up. You don't even, so I think that scheme is unique because that mentorship is there. Without mentorship, you see, I may think I know it all, but there's something my father knows that I need. So you need that mentorship from time to time. And you have somebody to cry on to. Oh, I made some mistake. Oh, don't worry, son. This is how it is. You know, that's very important. It's like you're in a marriage. You make mistake, you tell your parents to say, oh, it's normal. Forgive your wife.
And there's something also critical that I know that mentorship also provides. Yeah. I mean, it helps with networking as well.
Definitely.
Great. And incidentally, I know you've referenced the Igbo mentorship scheme as being one of the most popular in Africa or West Africa. But incidentally, I think our northern brothers are also, are also at it, and they've picked up, and
of course,
perhaps even more. You know, let me just give you a quick story now. A couple of years ago, I had a neighbor just by the wall, perimeter wall of my estate. We call him Malam Yakubu. Malam Yakubu was there when I moved in. He had this small shark stall that he was using. And then 2 years down the line, Malam Yakubu had moved from that particular store to a small shop down by same street.
Okay.
And then he had his younger brother, someone we came to later know, as his younger brother, had taken over the store that was by the perimeter fence of my estate. And then I think it was the following year or 3 years later, Malam Yakubu, who I could no longer call Malam Yakubu, I had to start calling him Big Man Mala.
Okay.
Had moved into a shop.
Good.
You know, two shops that he had combined. And then his younger brother, Salihu, who had moved to that, who was in that store that he started with, had moved to Malam Yakubu's bigger store.
Okay.
And now, I tell you, these days when I see Malam, Big Man Mala, that's what I call him now, Big Man Mala, Malam Yakubu, I want to swap with him. Yes. Let me take your business and you come do my work. That's how entrepreneurship grows, and that's how businesses grows. But finally, before I let you go, forgive me for my story, but I just wanted to pass a message so people understand. So, another issue that I consider quite germane and important to this whole issue of entrepreneurship, and it's perhaps one of the most important features of entrepreneurship, is the issue of risk-taking. And businesses are managed, like I had said earlier, by one person or a small group of persons who ultimately bear the risks. So how do we strike a balance, knowing that not taking any risks at all can stagnate a business, while excessive, impulsive risk-taking can also cause losses?
Yeah, Oscar Brown said it all. I may not make it if I try, but sure won't if I don't. You may not make it if you try, but you remain there if you don't. So risk-taking is a part of life. And I do publish in a magazine, and funny enough, I'm sorry, I'm going to say this to many of our people out there. We black people in the UK, for instance, I always inspire them to think business.
Okay.
You will not get into my magazine if you are a good lawyer. You only get into my magazine if you own a chamber. So I'm saying convert your skill into a firm. You see, you won't get into my magazine if you are a great accountant. Only when you have an account firm, that is when I'm going to get you in my magazine. What am I trying to do? I'm trying to say whatever skill you have, convert it into the entrepreneurship part of life so that you can create job. Look at what Malam did. Malam was able to convert from small to big, and he bring in somebody mentoring and into that. That is an example of that Malam. Yeah, again, so let's stick with the issue of risk. Risk is important. Everything we do in life is risk. Business is risk. But if you know what you're doing, the risk is limited. So that's why I always say to people, please make mistakes, because you're learning. And don't see it when you lose money at the end of the war. No, you're going to come back. I call it paying school money. You keep losing, but trust me, you will not lose again. You know, I've been doing something the same years, and people say, oh, why are you doing it? I say, I can't stop because this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
This is going to be my retirement, and it is going to be because I believe in it. And as I learn, as I make mistakes, I learn, I grow, and now I can be called an expert in it. So that's how it is.
I mean, it's been quite fascinating having this conversation with you. But unfortunately, this is where we'll draw the curtain on our discourse. It's been insightful, and hopefully we can revisit this subject matter from another perspective in the near future. Okay. Christian Ashaiku, entrepreneurship consultant and advocate, I'd like to thank you so much for coming on Insights.
Thank you very much.
And that's it on this episode of the program. Do join us same time next week on Insight. My name is Nnamdi Odipo. See you next week.